3.
Cool. Okay, this is my greeting, his birthday wishes for Gail. And forgive me if I read it because otherwise I don't remember it all. But dear Gail, a children's dream provider. As an East Berlin child, I only dreamt about your exploits as told by my parents. Little did I know then that God would give me the honor to A, getting to know you personally, B, having had the pleasure of dining with you after the Mather Air Force Air Show in 2013, and C, being able to wish you a happy and healthy 100th birthday, hopefully also in person in Utah. God bless you, keep you healthy for many more years to come, and see you on the 10th of October. We love you and thank you for all you have done. This is from Brigitte, the East Berliner kid from the Danville group. That's my birthday greeting.
Okay, that's very good. So if you can talk maybe a little bit louder on this next portion and look up towards the camera occasionally so we can see your
face.
face.
Yeah, it's kind of dark. I can see that in my, but anyway, I grew up in East Berlin and I'm born in 1943. So I was 5 years old at the time of the airlift. And my dad was an engineer who actually worked for the Western government. At that time it was just the French government, but we lived in the Russian sector. And so when the airlift happened, my parents would tell us about it. But of course, we living in the East, none of the candy would be naturally delivered in that sector. And but we heard about it, and it sounded so wonderful. It was just uplifting. I mean, here we were the enemy, and then I think for me that started the vision I've had about the Americans. We once in 1950, my father was able to move us over to the West, and we lived there then for the rest of till I came to this country. But there was something always about the Americans, and I'm just wondering if part of that is related to hearing the stories about Gail, what he did was, making the children happy. But I always felt that, and my family felt that the American soldiers were our lifesavers. And maybe that's just us, but I just can see the American guys walking, chewing their gum, and always having this big smile on their face. And when a child looked up to them, they always had to ruffle your head and just gently and from their heart nice. And perhaps that's what started the love of mine for this country. I mean, this is my country now, and nobody better mess with it. So, but I just feel, Gail, that his actions just really started something that was so very, very important at this time of the, after the war.
Yes.
But when we lived in the East, it was at first was just 4 sectors, and there wasn't much of a difference at the beginning when they separated the 4 sectors. But it didn't take very long before you realized that the Russian sector was so very, very different from the other 3 in the way, the humanitarian way of dealing with the Germans who happen to live in their sector. And I know my dad, like I said, my dad worked in the West, so he got his monies came from the West, and the Western money was 4 times as valuable than the East. So therefore you could shop much easier in the East because you had so much more money, but there was nothing to shop because they didn't have anything. So people, no matter whether you worked in the West or the East, if you didn't get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, you didn't get any bread.
Oh,
It didn't matter, you know, or you didn't get the meat or the bones you wanted to buy to make some soup. But when so a lot of people, like my dad was an engineer for the subway station, subway department, and he built the undergrounds. And many of his engineers chose to stay and live in the East because it was such a disparity between the income. But my dad always felt, nope, that's not his cup of tea. And we moved over, and I'm so grateful that he did. But I then grew up in the West, and remember all the way until 1961 when then the wall came up.
what
But
year did you move over to the West?
in 1950, I was 7 years old.
Oh,
I remember that. My dad, we were at that time, you were still able to move with all your belongings, you know, with a moving van, because it truly was not a separated section. After 5 years, I think 5 years later, that was no longer possible. You had to have permission from the Eastern German government in order to move your stuff, and most likely you didn't get it. But then when it came to the late 50s, it got worse and worse and worse, and people just took the subway and just from the East and got out in the West and stayed there forever. So but I I'd also remember the day the wall did go up. The subways crossed all underneath Berlin, so there were no separations other than the eastern stations always had the Russian soldiers with the machine guns. The American, French, and British, you had no clue which one it was unless it says you're leaving an American sector and you're entering a French sector.
uh-huh.
I remember that day that I think it was from a Saturday to Sunday. That Sunday morning, we happened to visit some friends of relatives, and we had to cross, go through part of the Russian sectors, and the train didn't stop. It just didn't stop. It just kept going, and everybody, the people who wanted to get off couldn't get off.
Oh dear.
So, and then you come out, and then you hear on the news that the wall's not in place. You no longer have permission to either enter or leave the Russian sector. So, and
Wow.
it just started it all over again. What's happening here? So, but that's all I can tell you. I came to this country. I have a degree in hotel management, and I came to this country to speak English, to learn better English, and came to New York. I had relatives in California. So while I was in New York, I then later on went to California to meet them. And then my father remarried. My mom had passed away when I was 18. And he remarried, and I said, well, I'm not going to go home. He didn't ask my permission. And I stayed. And I'm so glad I stayed because it is my country. It's my home. And I just love this country.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
All I can tell you. But other than meeting Gail, this was interesting because he came to Danville to give a talk, and I didn't even have a clue at all. And somebody invited me that, this is a group from Berliners, and they, was, oh, well, I'm from the East. I had nothing to do with this. I wish I did at the time, but I didn't. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. And that's how I got to meet him finally. And I mean, you heard about him, and like I said, I knew him since I was a kid, 7 years old, well, no, 5 years old. But we remember that because our parents, even so, when you lived in the East, you were not allowed. Well, my parents always drummed it in our head that you do not tell anybody what's being said in our home because, the Stasi and all the Eastern German and the Russians, they could just come and you come home from school and there's no mom and dad.
Yeah.
So, but my dad, working in the West, learned all about this, what Gail was doing and the airlift and all these things. And so he was able to tell us, but we were not allowed, excuse me, to tell that to other children.
Oh.
Because, like I say, I was in East Germany, East Berlin, and they didn't look kindly on that. And so, but that doesn't mean I forgot, we've
Yeah.
always had it. So,
Oh, wow.
but,
Interesting.
so that's pretty much all I can tell you about that section. But meeting him was such an honor, and we were able to take our grandson to have dinner with him in Sacramento, and now he was just beaming from one side to the other, being able to meet Colonel Halverson, because I told him all about it, so, and just getting to know him, his sense of humor, his laughter, and his kindness. My grandson's pretty shy, but he was sitting next to him, and he just engaged him and didn't make him feel uncomfortable, made him feel really comfortable. And he's just one hell of a guy. Gail is.
Well, it's wonderful to meet somebody like you that has had those experiences in your background, and
Yeah.
who living in this country means so much to you, and your experiences that you had with American soldiers. We're always glad to hear
But oh gosh, yes.
hear about that.
As I said, remember chewing the gum and answering your question. And if you go into school and you're trying to learn English and you start speaking to them in English, they always helped you. They never laughed at you. They never, they could maybe corrected you. You do that with any of the other ones, the French or the British, well, forget that. But the Americans were always, always kind, always took the time to acknowledge this little kid looking up at them, but
And that was unusual for the time, right? Because
you bet.
kids really didn't have a voice at that time, did they?
No. And the only thing I can say that maybe I felt comfortable speaking to them. You know what I'm saying? I never felt I had to be afraid of them.
Uh-huh.
And the pipsqueak, I'm short now, I was short then, so I always had to look up. But there was something inviting to these gentlemen. I don't think I ever met any female soldiers, but the male soldiers on the streets when they were, patrolling or whatever. They always took the time to answer your questions. And then they afterwards say, "You sprichst Deutsch, ich verstehe, ne?" and so, okay. So yeah, it was very special. It was very special. My friends kid me a lot now. They say I'm more American than many Americans when it comes to, loving this country. But I think you have to be in both. And I didn't have I grew up in the Western section, which was like America, free and whatever have you. But to really appreciate what this country has to offer, and does offer to anybody who asks for it the right way, it's always given easily. It's you don't have to twist anybody's arm, and when you have to be somewhere else to understand that that's kind of unique.
Uh-huh. Well, you do have a unique perspective. I wonder, when you were during the blockade itself, you were in the Russian sector. Did you hear anything about the blockade? Well, you're just a young girl, but
my dad told us about it, and because where we lived was very close to the next checkpoint over to the west, and we could hear the planes going over,
oh,
constantly. And that was, he explained that why they were doing that. And and that's how we learned how the Western government, because he lived over there, I mean, he worked over there, he was able to bring some of the stuff home because he could shop over there, which you could not in the East.
I see.
Like I said, if you didn't get there by 7 o'clock, you didn't get any bread. Well, if you were in the West, especially doing the airlift, you were able to get some of the things you need for your daily nutrition, and I think, like, my dad just always was so appreciative that this was happening, because we were, in that case, recipient, which my friends and everybody else was not. He never ever came home with big bags, he made the point only to get for things what we needed, and so that was just enough. But having that, and then seeing what the Russians did to the Germans in regards to allowance of food, it made such a big difference. Yeah.
Well, you could really tell the difference between the different systems.
Oh, you bet. Yes. Yes. Even as a child, you could. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You could understand. I mean, I was 5.5, 6 by the time it was over. But it was, the only thing is you didn't even get to share this nice feeling with anybody, because you didn't dare, because you never know the other people. Maybe your friends, but you didn't dare even talk about it. Because we lived in the East. In the West, you can talk about as much as you want. But in the East, you couldn't, So.
Well, that was very wise of your father to move you. That was not an easy thing to do.
Nope.
Did you have relatives also near you in the East?
Yes, we did have an aunt and an uncle. They're the ones we moved into. My dad was an engineer, and he, the buildings, many of the buildings were destroyed. And the one building that wasn't destroyed in this one street, which was close to my aunt's, had, the front was in one piece. How they used to be, there used to be kind of like a square with a open area in the middle. Well, the sides were kaput and the back was kaput. So this one apartment on the 4th floor was fine in the front room, but it was not fine in the back room because the wall was gone. Wow. So my dad was able to, had a skill to close that wall and build it in, so we could use that apartment, and we were able to live in that apartment till he was able to move us over. They provided an apartment for him in the West, and we were able to move there.
Wow. What did your father do during the war? I wondered, it doesn't seem like it was very good for German men at that time.
No, he was assigned to build bunkers in France because he was an engineer. So that's where he was most of the time till the last end. Then when Hitler pulled everybody in to go to the Russian front, and then he became a regular soldier, and in the meantime, my dad was able to move my mom and my brother, myself, out into the country, to a small town, and which is lucky, because if we left to go there, and I believe within a week, the apartment we lived in, that one house in a long street of apartments, only one house, one bomb went in it and destroyed it totally.
Oh.
So God had a reason for everything at all times. And so we were saved. They lost all their belongings, but we were saved. And then my dad became a prisoner of war in Russia. And it took him, he was, again, somebody certainly looked out for him. And he was able to come back home via medical situation. And when you make friends, when you, even not all Russians, I'm not saying, not certainly not all Russians are bad, not all whatever's are bad, but
Right.
by he was, in the way I understand it, is he found a very kind physician
Yeah.
who was able to use his medical condition to to bring about his release much earlier. So
Oh,
he came home, I believe, in 1940. Oh, I don't, you know what? I don't remember what year he came home, but he was released within 2 years or something, being a prisoner of war. But I have to tell you a funny story about this. You know, the Russians, all they gave him to eat was a lot of onions and potatoes
uh-huh.
and fresh onions, not cooked fresh onions. So my dad had developed this terrible, terrible hate for the smell of onions.
Oh,
So my mom could usually not really, if she cooked it, that's fine, but not raw.
oh, oh,
And
oh,
we, as kids, we loved just a piece of bread with fresh butter on it and then just fresh onions because there was no sandwich meat. And when we used to eat it, and my dad would come home at 5 o'clock in the evening from work, and when he came home, we always used to run and try to hug him.
uh-huh.
And this one time I was trying to run and hug him, and he just swat me. And the
Oh,
minute he swat me, I said, "Oh my God, oh my God, what did I do?" And then I also realized what he had said over and over: when you eat fresh onions, don't come near me.
oh,
You know how things get
oh,
ingrained you. This just becomes so
yeah.
much a part of you.
Yes, it
And
really,
my hand just flew out, because I expected you
oh,
to know that how horrible it is that I can't get this out of my head. So
uh,
I mean, people forget. Well, anyway, I remember this to the day.
well,
It's
he associated that smell with his terrible experiences over
right,
there.
right, right.
Yeah.
So
Oh boy. Yeah.
that, yeah, that's I can tell you about Germany, and I just um, it hurts me when I go over to Germany and um, I see sometimes what is called disdain on questions or whatever. They haven't forgotten, what the Americans did after the war, not during the war because that was war, but after the war.
Yeah.
And I don't, but it's a different generation. I'm old, so we are all dying out. The younger ones don't know it, and I don't know over there if the history books teach anything. I have no idea. I've not, and in fact, I'm interested. When I'm talking to my cousin, I'm going to ask him, he's a teacher, if the airlift is mentioned in the history books.
Uh,
I've never, I mean, we knew about it because we grew up. It didn't need
right.
to be there, but we all grew up with it, especially if we lived in Berlin.
Right.
But nowadays, I wonder, and the Americans did other good things, don't get me wrong, but that certainly was a biggie, that saves a lot of lives. So, and we were the enemy, we certainly were the enemy. So,
Yes, it's a remarkable time in history that
mhm,
everybody should know about this.
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
Okay, is there anything else you would like to ask me?
How did you meet your husband then?
Well, like I said, my dad remarried and I wasn't going back. So instead of coming home, I went from New York to California, came back to California, to New York because the lady I stayed with needed somebody to take care of their children while she went to Germany to visit her mom. And so I decided I'm instead of coming home from New York, I'm going back to California. I got a job there and the Simmons Mattress Company. And when after they moved over to this side of the bay, I met my husband who was hired, and so we met at the mattress company. And people always used to ask me, "How did what do you do then?" I said, "Oh well, we test mattresses. Oh yeah, your eyes would go up. And then no, never mind. No, we have special tennis shoes, and we kind of jump from corner to corner and test the mattress. And would you believe some people even believe that? I couldn't. He was an accountant, and I was working in the accounting, so.
Oh,
But that's how we met. He worked in the same place, and yeah.
What do you do now to share your story and to talk to others about your experience?
We have one son, and we have he has 3 children, 2 stepchildren, and so there are 5 grandkids. He's remarried, and I went back to school when he was around 6 years, 7 years old, because a hotel management degree, you had to, for me to be interesting, you had to live in San Francisco, and a motel was not my cup of tea. And that was just too far. And so I went back to school, and they had a special program. At the school, the University of the East Bay, or Hayward used to be, they would, you took a test, and then if you passed that test, you could enter their bachelor's program. And it's really not even bachelor's, the whole 4 years. And I passed the test, and they took me, and then I started the job. The major was in speech pathology, and I asked my professor, I said, I have an accent and I haven't gotten rid of it, and I'm not sure if I want to get rid of it. And he said, well, that's fine. That's not, as long as you know how to teach the sound to make anything. And it turned out well. I got my master's at the University of the Pacific in Stockton, and I've been working with the mentally delayed population for quite a while, and then also had my private practice in Pleasanton, and then I retired in 2011. Now I just do some consulting work.
Oh, good. And the nature of your consulting work goes along with your career?
Yes, it does, because I specialize in swallowing issues, dysphagia, and individuals who are developmentally delayed. They can't tell you what the problem. Maybe you have to kind of help them with that. And it's kind of nice, because even with COVID, after the first months, they realized we are needed, and we got the permission to go out and do our observations, do our treatments with the clients. So it worked great.
That's good. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you have loved doing that.
Yes, I do, because they're very special.
You can help individuals.
Yes.
Right. That's fun working one-on-one with people, I think.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you talk to your grandchildren about the airlift?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. They know. They've heard now, about Gail so much. And being one brother, being their twin boys, and one didn't get to go, the other one did. So he remembers, So oh yes, my son knows about it, and I make sure they know about it. Let's put it this way.
Have you written anything or given any interviews to very many people?
I think I did one for the World War II Museum.
In New Orleans?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
She interviewed me and sent me a DVD. It was really nice. She did a nice job. But that's the only one I, because I'm really, like I say, the people in our group in Danville, they actually got the candy. They got the candy, they got the parachutes, they got all the things. I just, not me, but so like I said, I didn't know they even wanted me to be in that group, but they said, oh yeah, please.
Well, my father remembers when his commander said he was not allowed to drop anything to the east.
Yes.
Because they had been dropping things over there, and then I guess the Russians said, this is a dirty capitalist trick. You're trying to make us look bad, and so they had to stop.
Yes.
Which is too bad. So it's wonderful to hear this from an East German perspective, which we never have, I don't think I've heard before. So
Well, yeah, I heard the planes, and I still the sound will never ever get out of your head either. You know, and in fact, I used to see them because, um, you know, all the separations were never clear. You know, they were could be like this. You know, and the planes had to sometimes touch, I think, airspace somewhat because unless I saw Russian planes up there, but I don't think there were that many Russian planes because they came so many times. So,
Mm-hmm.
and the sound, you know, you can almost set your watch by it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like I said, we were close to the west, very close to the west. We could almost spit over, you know, if we had to.
Wow.
But so, and I knew what it was. But like I said, we were told, you don't tell anybody. You don't tell anybody.
Yeah. Huh. Well, did you realize or think that when you were a child that you didn't have enough, or did your parents make sure that they shielded you maybe from some of the harder information
Hmm.
and got the food for you that they could? And
Well, my mom was shorter than I am. I think she's 4'11". I'm 5 feet. Um, but I remember them telling me, and I was too little at that time, but it was before the airlift. Being in Berlin, and there was nothing to do. The war wasn't over yet. But my mom took my baby buggy, which my baby, you know, where I used to lay in as a baby, and she took that to where we were. Um, no, it was after the war because the war was over. And she took warriors evacuated, same town,
uh-huh.
and they gave her gave her a sack of 100 pounds of potatoes, but it's still 100 pounds, you know. So you use the baby buggy to bring the 100 pounds of potatoes home,
Oh,
and that 100 pound, and people were, you know, she says, in the trains, man, you know, was a good 4 hour train ride, and everybody helped her. Nobody tried to steal you know, whatever she had. They helped her in and out of the trains when you had to make connection. And she brought those potatoes home. We ate everything. We ate the peel. They make the best potato pancakes made out of the peel. Potato, you didn't miss a piece out of that potato. You ate everything. And as kids, like I said, we ate potato and olive oil. We ate potatoes and cream cheese or whatever cheese they had. Piece of bread, you just put butter on it and sugar because you didn't have any jam, or certainly didn't have any sandwich meat. That just wasn't available in the East. You just didn't get it unless you high muck up there. Then of course you had everything you wanted. But if
yeah.
you're normal Joe Smo, you go to the butcher, all gone. You know, they gave so little, but we were fine with that. As kids, they're very resilient, and if you have love around you, it isn't that important as long as you tell me it's full, and never mind what it's being filled with. The only thing I do have to say, again, my dad was able to shop over there, but he never ever shopped coming home with big bags. You know what I'm saying? He
Yes.
came
Uh-huh.
home just at home, just with this one bag, and he would have stuff in it which you could eat. And these were special things, the things you still enjoy nowadays. But they were just small amounts, and you didn't have a lot of it, but it didn't matter. You got that little extra, you know.
Mhm.
And once moved over, and I mean, at that time, you still could go over there yourself and buy it. But if you went from the east to the west, it would have been exorbitant, expensive,
Oh,
because everything was 4 times as much to buy it. So the Russian knew it. How are they going to go over there and buy it? They can't.
yeah.
See, for us, it was the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
My dad could bring it home because his income was, and the engineers who were working under him, that's what they liked because they could buy anything they wanted over there or here or in the East. But and that wasn't our cup of tea, and so he didn't want to do that.
No, that sounds like it was very smart the way he was able to bring things to you, but not in excess, so that other people
Right, right,
would think, oh, they get it and we don't, and
right,
so.
right, right. He's the only one that had a telephone in the apartment because he needed to be on call. And so we had, again, you had to be really careful. You didn't know everybody in that apartment, you know. And if they knew there was a phone in the house, which was very odd. Most likely it's only one phone in the whole street, right? And but my dad, if somebody was an emergency, was made clear if there's an emergency, you certainly you're welcome to use that phone. But he would have liked to make it more accessible to more people, but you never knew who's going to come into your apartment and use that phone. So he could not, make it more accessible. And again, as a kid, we were told, you don't offer, you just don't offer that somebody, oh, do you want to call your uncle or whatever? No, you don't do that. You just, your mom. But some people knew there was a phone, and so some people took advantage, but they didn't take advantage of it, though. They really didn't. They just, if there was an emergency, he was able to call somebody. But so, yeah, as a kid, you learn these things, and you have survival, You
Yeah.
have, I couldn't fathom my parents not being there, and that would have been a possibility.
Yeah. And you could understand that even at a young age.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you bet.
Mhm.
Fear gets you
Uh-huh.
sometimes more so than the good stuff, right?
Right. Well, what kind of lessons do you wish that the United States and Germany would learn from those times?
Working together, they, this country has a combination of everybody, the Irish, the Germans, the French, whatever. They've got the best of everything and mixed together and comes out. Germany is Germany, France is France. Why is it that they cannot use the best they have and make it the better? Put it all together, and then we all can learn from another and can help each other. Why does this have to be this competition? Be the best, I want to be better, or whatever. But that's maybe human nature. I don't know anything about that. I'm just a simple person. But why it is that there's such an why nowadays why there's such an bitterness? I don't know. Do I dare say maybe it's jealousy? I don't know.
Mm.
It used to be, I've been told that it was very often people were very jealous of America because where the gold lays on the street, no, 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 no. There is gold, but you got to work for it. And that's makes, and that's how it should be.
Mhm.
And it was in Germany, same way, but America's always been a dream for people because of how it got established and then what happened. But nowadays, when with so much knowledge and information, why can people see that it would be so wonderful if there would be unity, you know, uh, togetherness? And this
No,
is stupid, I'm sure it's simplistic, but
no, it's not. I really have always believed that Germany and the United States really need each other.
yes.
I'm not sure exactly all the reasons, but it's just a feeling I have that
Hmm.
um, together we can make a really good team on both sides of the ocean here
Absolutely, we could.
to, to make things better for the world than just one of us alone.
Right, right. Take a little bit of a stuff off our shoulders and carry it, and
Yeah.
I, not sure. Don't know much about politicians and politics and all the rules and regulations to run a country, but I that is exactly what I'm thinking. We could be such a nice adjunct to one another. And why isn't that? And for a while, I thought there was. Um, and then I don't know what happened. I really don't know what happened. I basically, when I talk to some of my cousins and my friends, I still have friends I went to school with, and um, when you really dig down to what is it they want the same thing
Yeah.
we want, but yet how to get there is a different matter, and then they don't really know the matter how to get there. So you can't just expect something to fall into your lap anymore. You have to have a plan on trying to make something happen. And if you go the wrong direction, that's your choice to make. But if you do the right direction, if you do your homework, then it should work just nicely, at least in my opinion, easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what's going to happen with Miss Merkel, and I don't know. And the Germans can be, the Germans are Germans, let's face it. Hard-headed, they're bright and whatever, but they're just like everybody. They have their strengths and weaknesses, as we all do. But
But I think their strengths add a lot to the world, and
yes,
if they're used in a good way,
yes, exactly. And they
in a
have,
way that's for others, not just for themselves.
yes, yes. When you look at Germany, what they have done
Mm-hmm.
after the wall went down,
Mm-hmm.
it is amazing. They picked up another country, actually, really, and had to bring it up to speed with the
Yeah.
rest of the European, areas.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that pretty much on their own,
Mm-hmm.
other than getting help, I'm sure, from America, whatever, but business-wise. But they've done it without, at least as far as I know, looking back, without asking for too much help from everybody. They did it, and they did it. When you listen to the Germans, they use the best German. They say, these Germans, boy, they don't know how to work. They don't know how to. Well, they weren't brought up to do the work the same way you did, but then they were brought on board to follow, and that being on board then brings about, then I guess, also the progress
Uh-huh.
and some of the change, and certainly all the changes. So, but when I'm looking at Germany now, I need to realize that there is a mix now of the generation that has no clue about World War II and after, other than maybe from the Russian side, and it's a totally different mindset, which I need to acknowledge. But the Western side should not have that mindset unless they're having a different ideology and how they want to do things. But I agree with you. They have so much to share. The Germans do have a lot to share, and if they can do that and find a good partner, and they can depend on one another,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a key issue.
That is.
Don't blow up, up my. I don't want that. I want some honesty, transparency, and straightforward plan on what can be done.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are good thoughts and good wishes.
Whoa. The hour is almost an hour. Is that amazing?
Mm-hmm. It is amazing. So
anyway, I hope I didn't talk your ear off.
Oh, absolutely not. It's just fascinating to think that you actually experienced those times, and what you've seen across the time of your life.
Yes, I have.
There aren't too many people that have had those kind of experiences that Berliners had during the war, and well, the first war too. Your parents living through two wars, and then the aftermath of those times is really unbelievable. I know there are other countries in the world now that are having experiences like this, but a lot of us have not experienced these things firsthand. So it's just wonderful to hear from you and others like you that have had this, because you give us a very good and unique perspective and point of view that helps us remember and appreciate what we have.
Good. Thank you. If it helps, that's great. Anything.
Well, thank you. And would you be willing to have us share this video?
Sure. Should
That's
nobody
okay.
laughs at me, I'm fine. If they can
Oh,
even laugh, that's okay. That's okay.
nobody's going to laugh, so.
This Gail is just, he's just up here. Your dad is just, was a very special person, and all the people who helped him are very special people.
No, that is true. The whole lot of them, as you said,
Yes,
were,
yes, it is.
were marvelous.
Yeah.
He's here, right in the other room, but he's asleep, so.
You're doing good. So I'm looking forward, well, I get to meet you then maybe on the 10th, right?
Yes, we're looking forward to it too.
Sounds
And
here. They're
thank you
looking
for all
forward
of
to it.
your trouble that you have taken to give this interview and your time, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, Denise, thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you,
And see you
Brigitte.
in a couple, 3 weeks. Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.